Today I want to introduce you to a term that if you don't know about it, you should know about it. It's called a CBDC. What does it stand for? Well, central bank digital currency. Um, so China has already rolled out their digital yuan. That's the name of their currency. And let's talk about what it is and whether it will become valuable, whether you should invest in it, or whether you should take actions to avoid it. So central bank digital currencies, let's just say that the US does implement a CBDC. So what that will actually be is basically a digital dollar. So it'll probably be worth exactly the same as a dollar in your pocket, the paper dollar. The only difference is they would probably enforce that banks keep basically in sync with the CBDC network. I don't think individuals will necessarily have wallets on the CBDC initially. I think that the U.S. will want to keep the banking industry alive, and of course, there's a lot of lobbyists in the banking industry that would not want the U.S. to allow for private wallets on the CBDC. So basically, what the U.S. has right now, the Federal Reserve System, is kind of the system that all the banks tap into to basically get money, send credits, ask for debits. And my guess is any sort of digital dollar would also be put on the Federal Reserve System. Yeah, and as most of you already know, the Federal Reserve is actually a private entity. It's not part of the federal government, and it's not beholden to the federal government, even though it does sometimes take actions that the federal government asks them to, like lowering interest rates, for example, and purchasing treasuries, quantitative easing, things of that nature. So what is going to be good and what is going to be bad about the digital dollar? Well, one thing that might be good about the digital dollar is it would increase transparency, depending on whether they make that publicly accessible. And so what I mean by increased transparency is everybody in the US could hypothetically tap into and understand where the digital dollars are coming and going in a macro scale. Like, for example, if there were certain banks, certain refunds going out from the IRS, for example, just from a huge macro scale, they'd be able to see clearly how much exactly went out from the blockchain to send out refunds, for example, or send out Social Security. And there could be a lot of attributes associated with the data to mark what type of data it is. So you'd be able to tell whether it's like a federal refund or somebody's paying their federal taxes. You could go down to the state level potentially even, where you could have, these transactions indicate whether they are state tax payments, for example. And then if you drill down even further, companies are required to remit sales tax, for example, to states, and they use accounting software that pretty much automatically does that for them. But the need for that accounting software would probably go away if the states and the merchants adopt digital dollar, because when a digital payment is made from a digital dollar, and let's just assume that yes, it does go all the way to a personal wallet level, then those merchants, it may be actually required for them to remit sales tax immediately. And so it could speed up the rate at which states collect their taxes. And then other things like medical expenses, there could be metadata associated with medical expenses. So maybe when you're filing your taxes, you may not have to actually break out, what you spent on certain deductible things or things that give you credits, and it would automatically know based on the digital dollar spending history, and you wouldn't have to really claim it separately. But that would be way down in the future, because merchants could take advantage of that by marking themselves as a medical provider, and they actually aren't, and things like that. So there needs to be laws written up related to that before that actually gets rolled out. But yeah, I assume that the digital dollar will just start out being used by the banks themselves and not by individuals, which is not as exciting. When it gets to the individual level, yes, it could be, each person has an app on their phone, or, the QR code, which does get into the scary land of the conspiracy theories, where a lot of people have said, oh, you're going to have a barcode on your body, and, that's what you're going to pay from. But I doubt that's going to happen, because what's to stop somebody from copying that barcode and then charging your account? So it has to be multi-factor. I don't think it's really going to be facial or eye recognition either, because there's so many people that, have had their photo taken, for example, or even if they've been on a video like me here on YouTube or Facebook, then that would be pretty irresponsible to just rely on that type of authentication for payments. But for me, I think I'll stick with credit card payments and cash rather than adopting the digital currency just right away. I'm a huge fan of cryptocurrencies because they're not beholden to any government. Their blockchain really can't be altered because it's so distributed. The digital dollar definitely is going to have means by which the controller, that is the Federal Reserve, can update the chain, I'm sure. I don't think it's going to be irreversible, but I could be wrong. Yeah, so digital dollar, central bank, digital currencies. I think we will see them in the US in the next 5 years. I mean, we're at 2021 right now. I would not be surprised we see that soon. And then once that's adopted, slowly there'll be a sort of a phase out, probably, of coinage initially. So like the penny, starting with the penny, the nickel, dime, and I don't think they make 50-cent pieces anyways anymore, so that won't be a thing. But then the quarter, and I'm not sure if they'll still make those dollar coins anymore. And this all depends on inflation too, because if inflation rises so much that coinage can't buy anything anyways, then it actually costs more, to put the metals into the coins than than what they're worth. So that would not make sense. There's a huge bumblebee right here. But anyways, central bank digital currency, CBDC. Keep that in your mind in the next few years. And for the good or the bad, it's always good to be informed, up to date, and understand what that might mean for you. If people are doing business, with cash, then it could be more impactful if the digital currency is more a required means of payment. But I don't think that cash will be gotten away with within the next 5 years. Coinage potentially, but yeah, it's getting there. China is the first major country to adopt a digital currency, and the US may actually be seeing how that goes before rolling out their digital currency. And then I know there's other countries that are actually waiting for the US to adopt it first before they go, and South Korea is one of those countries. So yeah, expect to see smaller sovereign nations that print their own currencies to adapt digital currencies first, and then the US will probably be middle later down the line, and then the countries that follow the US would follow the US in that as well. But yeah, this has been Adam with The Highest Return. You can find me at The Highest Return group on Facebook, or you can subscribe to my blog at thehighestreturn.com. Have a good one, everyone.